You know, sometimes we all just get stuck. I'm still reminiscing and thinking of you. 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 Thinking of you and the way it used to be. Thinking of you lying side by side with me. Peaceful as a dove on the wings of blue sky love. Thinking of you as if you were right here. Watching the snow fall right outside the door. Building a snowman 5 feet high or more. We coming from the cold. I brush the snowflakes off your nose. Thinking of you is doing me no good. Because you said you'd always stay. You'd never leave. You'd never walk away. You said you just were friends. He was nothing more than someone close to you before. So why did you start again and leave me thinking of you? Why did it have to end this way and leave me thinking of you? Thinking of you and the ways we made such love. Bodies entwined as if directed from above. Warmth and passion there, loving all that tender care. Thinking of you is all that I can do. Thinking of you with every breath I take. Thinking of you with every move I make. The promises we share, how our very souls were bare. When did it start to come apart this way? Because you actually lied to me, led me to believe you'd always stay with me. You, who I thought always true, you could have told me then thinking of you, thinking of you, thinking of you, thinking of you. It really is amazing how different phrases can take on different meanings at different times. Thinking of you is a somber story of love that stays with a person. Thinking of you also can be related to almost any human being that has any kind of a problem that impresses someone. I want to tell you the story of a Washington, D.C. Superior Court judge who was a wonderful man with a great reputation. He was about 62 years old when I first met him, a Superior Court judge, and he was celebrating with his family on Christmas Eve, and he had a little one too many drinks, and he certainly wasn't an alcoholic, but he was celebrating that night, and he tripped and fell down the steps of his house. Immediately when he tripped and fell down the steps, he became weak in his arms and legs. Now, the type of weakness that he had was that his arms were weaker than his legs. In our study of spinal cord injuries, this let me know that he was suffering what's called a central cord syndrome, which means that there was bruising throughout the spinal cord up in his neck. I'm not going to go through all the details, but just because of the way the motor fibers are situated in the spinal cord, mind you, which is only as thick as my finger, and their distribution, the ones that were more affected in this type of an injury were the ones that controlled his arms. That's why his arms were weaker than his legs. Anyway, also with this kind of an injury, you do need to decompress the cord because there's swelling and bruising in it. However, if you do an operation too soon, the insult of the operation alone can make things worse, and so you have to usually wait a while. So we did wait, transferred him from Montgomery General Hospital down to the George Washington University Medical Center, where he treated him with steroids and mannitol and other medications to try and take away the swelling from the spinal cord. He really didn't get any better, so then after a couple of weeks, we did this operate on him. We decompressed the back of his neck, in other words, removed a lot of the bone, the lamina, which means wings, to give his spinal cord more room to, quote, breathe, end quote. Well, the operation went well, but he really didn't make much progress. So he stayed in this state of being weak in his arms, more weak in his arms than his legs, wasn't able to walk, and could not even sit in a wheelchair at this time. So he stayed this way for a certain amount of time, and then we transferred to a very sophisticated rehabilitation place in Maryland. The only problem was that his docket over at the court was building up because he was a judge and he had to take care of these cases. So the other judges were getting nervous about who was going to take care of his caseload. They were trying to divide it out, and they wanted really just to disqualify him and say that he was permanently disabled. Well, they kept writing me letters, and I said, I'm not ready to quit on him yet. I'm just not ready to quit on him. So then after a period, I think it was about 6 or 8 weeks, they called me down for a meeting between all the judges down into Washington, D.C., to the court. We go into this conference room, and it was a large table with all the judges sitting around it. And they were very insistent that I say that he was permanently disabled so they could formally give him that kind of a rating and find another judge. At that point, I was a little frustrated, and I walked around to each of the judges individually, and I looked at him. I looked at him, and I looked at him and pointed my finger at him, and I said, listen to me. If this were you, if this happened to you, what would you want me to do? Would you want me to quit right now or give you some more time, because I do think you still have a chance of getting better? When I said that to each of them, there was no way that they could say no, and so they gave me some more time. So we bantered back and forth and bargained, and they gave me another 6 weeks. I said, fine. So then he goes, I go home and I start calling the rehab center every day. every week for the 6 weeks. The first week, there's no change. The second week, there's no change. The third week, there's no change. The fourth week, there's no change. The fifth week, there's no change. And I think it's over. And I write this letter. I write this letter to the circuit judges down in Washington, D.C., stating finally that this judge is totally disabled. He'll never be able to go back on the court again. Now, in those days, I had a very healthy, active neurosurgical practice where there was a lot of things weren't as technologically advanced as they are now, and we usually wrote out all of our letters handwritten. And this was the first time in my career, and the last, that I ever remember writing a letter, putting it in an envelope, stamping it, but not sending it. I put it in my drawer. I just couldn't do it. And sure enough, by the end of the week, I get a call from the rehab therapist, and he tells me, you know what, I think the judge is a little better. It looks like I can get him into a wheelchair. I said, you can get him into a wheelchair? Great, he's going back to work next week. So I sent him back to work in the wheelchair, and he didn't make a full recovery, but he recovered enough that he could resume his seat at court and fulfill his caseload in a solemn way with the good judgment that he displayed throughout the years.